And when I call your name, just say present. Seth Barnes.
Present.
David Bugney.
Present by video.
Adam Coble.
Present.
Stacy Detweiler.
Present.
And Julie Furman, I think, is not here, if I'm correct. Not yet here. Correct. Wendy Gerlach.
Present.
Haley Ohms.
Present.
And welcome, Haley. We'll give you a moment to introduce yourself here in just a sec after roll call. Jason Robeson.
Present.
Josh Seeds.
Present.
Amanda Sullivan Astor. You're on mute, Amanda. I guess she'll be back in a moment. William Tucker.
Present.
Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and actually let's go ahead and Haley, if you want to introduce yourself. Hey, Haley, you want to give yourself a brief introduction?
Sure. Yeah, sorry, my internet just cut out there for a minute. I've been having like a day of tech gremlins, so hopefully this will go okay. Apologize. Hi everyone, my name is Haley Ohms. I'm a salmon biologist with Trout Unlimited. I've been at TU for about 3 years, and I'm based in Walla Walla, Washington. In my current role, I spend about half my time doing research, which is right now focused on population genetic models and hatchery wild systems. And then the other half of my time is spent supporting our advocacy and policy work through participating in forums like this, or commenting on various permitting issues, or supporting our staff that do that work. Prior to TU, I worked for the NOAA Southwest Fisheries Science Center in UC Santa Cruz. There I was running a tagging program to look at steelhead movement over a dam on the Carmel River. Let's see, I have a master's degree in fishery science from Oregon State and a PhD in integrative biology, also from OSU. My master's advisor was Gordy Reeves, who worked at the Forest Service for many years and was really involved in fish ecology and forest management research. And so I'm really excited to be like back kind of working in this space and on these topics in forestry. So yeah, thanks so much for having me. I know I'm pretty far from Salem, but I'm planning to be in person at the next several meetings, and I look forward to meeting you all in person and working with you guys.
Welcome aboard.
Thanks.
So I think now we'll do a brief public comment period if anybody from the public wants to provide comment. Just go ahead and raise your hand, virtual hand or your physical hand. Okay, not seeing anyone.
Sorry, Terry, just flagging that Julie jumped on in case we need to track that for the roll
Gotcha,
call.
that's helpful. Yeah, thank you. That didn't show up on my screen. She didn't show up. So welcome, Julie.
Thank you.
I'm gonna go ahead and start sharing my screen because there'll be some stuff. Okay, I'm gonna put this in presentation mode.
And Amanda too, just for the record.
Right, thank you. Okay, can folks see that all right? Okay, I got a thumbs up there. Let me get to where we are. And so the next order of business is the executive summaries of the August 25th and October 27th meetings. Just wondering if any folks had any corrections there, if you folks are ready to just accept those.
Do we need a motion for that, Terry? I can't remember.
No, the
Okay.
summaries you have not been doing as a substantial decision, meeting summaries.
Not seeing any raised hands or folks coming off mute, so I think
Okay.
we're good.
Okay, great. And so some updates here. You may have seen, hopefully everyone got a chance to look at the information I forwarded on about some proposed cuts that the department forwarded on to the legislature. And those include the $3.08 million that the legislature allocated last June specifically for research projects. So that funding is proposed to be cut. We'll see what the legislature does. There was a hearing on this several weeks ago at the Joint Ways and Means subcommittee on, I think it was Natural Resources was the name. And several legislators said, I'm not happy about cuts to the adaptive management program. So that's all in progress. And that's sort of a big topic. So before I go on to any other updates, any questions or conversations or comment there?
Terry, I suspect most have been following this, but it's probably important to note that the most recent budget forecast puts it in a much better light. And so hopefully with that, it's still, don't get me wrong, it's still a shortfall and projected to be a shortfall, but instead of upwards of 400 million or 300 plus, it's closer to forecasted closer to 60, 65, somewhere in there. So it's a far reduced budget reduction, at least what's expected. And so with that, I think, Stacy and I have talked and with our respective PFA partners in the coalition, and we certainly are going to be talking and doing our part to encourage full all of the money that we had allocated, full allocation of those funds to the program and no cuts. But there is more to come. But it does seem like we're in a much better position now than when those cuts were proposed. So that's probably worth noting for the record and for everyone's information. I suspect most already know that, but just in case there's a few that haven't been tracking that closely, that's kind of where we sit right now.
Yeah, thanks,
Right.
Seth. Just the other thing to add, again, folks are probably tracking, but the February revenue forecast will be another good indicator, and then we'll move into legislative session where these decisions will be made. So we will keep this group updated as that moves forward, but much larger conversation than just this or ODF's budget, statewide conversation.
Yep. Yeah, thank you. Okay, not seeing any other hands. A few other updates, just FYI, the appointments, it's 2 reappointments and 1 new appointment to the AMPC, Haley being the new appointment, and several others. I think it's Josh and Will Tucker, I think, who are the reappointments. That's going to the board in January. That's a consent agenda item. And then the IRST at their November, I think it was 20th meeting, did formally accept the finalized amphibians questions 1 and 2. So they're off and running on the developing the scope of proposals to address those 2 questions. And the 7-month clock officially starts on that November 20th acceptance date. And then the adaptive management program we'll be taking our update to the board in March of 26 instead of in January, our annual update. And that change was done in part to include the permanent state forester who should be on board by then. Any questions about these updates or any other updates from folks?
Amanda, go for it.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Amanda with Associated Oregon Loggers for the record. One question I have as it relates to the budget piece. Are we and/or like IRST going to wait to get RFPs out until we have a clearer picture of what the budget looks like? Or what can you describe to us kind of the, obviously we have some money sitting in a pot with INR. Will that, will we move through that automatically, or just kind of describe your conversations with them and where you think we're at with that?
Right, and Sean could probably address this a little bit better, but I'll give it a first shot, and that's they're actively trying to figure that out right now. About is it better to get these out and get everything moving, kind of on the timeline they had planned, and get that all moving with some sort of caveat in the RFP of, well, we need an RFP that's going to sort of do the whole pie, but there's a chance the pie might be cut in half or whatever. And so we need to have some contingency for that. Or do they wait until there's a decision from the legislature? So that, as far as I understand it, that has not been determined yet. And Sean, do you want to add anything there?
Yeah, you're right, Terry. It hasn't been determined. We haven't had a chance to discuss it yet in one of our IRST meetings. So hopefully we got another meeting this Thursday. We'll do some discussion then. But yeah, it'll take some strategizing to figure out what's the best approach to this, because we want to get those RFPs out as soon as possible, but we don't want to have to get one out and then change it or retract it or, otherwise confuse the process. And then we've also got the amphibians to think about. We'd like to get something out on the amphibians too. And, we estimated 7 months for developing a proposal, but of course we all would like to get it out sooner if possible. And then do we need to reserve funds for that as well? So, well, I'll have to think about.
Yeah.
It's still evolving.
Terry, you can correct the numbers if I think you circulated this, but I believe it's around that 3 million from 23-25 that's been parked at INR. So that would be in theory available. But if you recall, the entire research agenda budget, I think that was just approved by the board, was closer to 5. So there is a shortfall of about 2 million if this new 25-27 3 million is reduced. So that was just helpful for me.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And just a sort of operational point, I can't see folks too well in like the chat and everything. So if folks are saying anything in chat, if Emily or Marta or Stacy or Seth can kind of chime in, that would be helpful. Okay, so I think that's it for updates.
Oh, sorry, Terry, one more quick update, which we'll touch a little bit on the work plan, and I think this group mostly knows, but regarding the HCP timeline itself, ODF and the authors, folks involved in pulling that together, are really driving hard to hit the December 31st end of this year timeline to submit that. So assuming that goes to plan, or there's a little buffer into early January, bottom line is that there should be that submission, by the end of the year, very early 2026, which then will have some ripple effects in a positive way as far as our work plan next year, really getting momentum around effectiveness monitoring and things like that. So I just wanted to share that that is on track. It's going to be a big push, but looking possible that that's end of the year. So I wanted to share that.
Right. Excellent. Thank you. Okay, moving on. So at the January 28th meeting, some folks from the IRST, probably the co-chairs, will come, and there'll be a moderately lengthy discussion about the amphibian scoping proposals. And you may recall at the joint meeting in October, there was this question, I think it was Kelly who posed the question of, it'd be nice to sort of bring the AMPC up to speed in terms of what we've found through our literature review, and then help us narrow the suite of potential scoping proposals on amphibians. And I think the concern was that without a little more conversation and input from the AMPC, the suite of potential scoping proposals could be just too immense to do, whereas a conversation and educating could help IRST narrow that. Sean, do you have anything else to add about that from the IRST perspective?
No, again, we'll be discussing it at our Thursday meeting and then coming up with a plan for that presentation discussion over the next month.
Right.
So yeah, it's something to think about. And if, well, I guess if there's any AMPC feedback on that idea, we'd certainly love to hear it and how best we can work together to kind of focus our effort there.
Yeah. And I have, adding on to that, we have conversed about, to the extent that the IRST can have a clear picture of what they're wanting out of the conversation in terms of helping to narrow it, that'll be helpful. And I have full confidence that you folks will be able to bring that focused conversation to the meeting on the 28th. And then the IRST folks will also present on the RFPs, both the timeline and some of the, at least the big picture of how the process is going to work. I think it remains to be seen if they will have one of the RFPs ready to share at that point. I know you could be close, but part of, like, coming back to this question of the funding challenge that's looming and may delay some of the specifics of the RFP in terms of a AMPC quick review, courtesy review. And then also at the January 28th meeting, there's a possibility of finalizing the amphibians question 3. You may recall there's both a whole set of questions from the IRST on those sub-questions that need to be addressed, as well as narrowing the list of rules. And I think we're figuring out exactly if and how it makes sense to do it at this meeting, or if the information from the IRST may impact that amphibians question 3 conversation.
Terry, can you remind me, did ODF pull together the draft list of rules for amphibians? Is that where that lies now? Okay.
Yes. And I'd have to go back. I can't remember if I sent that to everyone yet, but I certainly have it pulled. I've worked with the respective subject matter experts to pull that together. So it's together and ready for review. I think part of the question in my mind is some of the sub 3 questions may be either altered or their goals might, the focus of the questions might be modified based on the conversation with IRST that day. And I'm mostly thinking about, there's one of the sub questions under 3 is something to the effect of how do the no-cut buffers impact the torrent salamanders? And I've heard that the torrent salamanders don't actually appear in the fish streams, or not very much. I don't understand the extent to which that's true. It may be completely, it may be much more nuanced than that. So anyways, there's just some information that'll be helpful, I think.
To prepare for that conversation, would it make sense to have a small work group? Like, could we potentially have a work group volunteer themselves at this meeting, maybe just to review that draft list? So when we come, I think that'll be our next meeting, right, Terry, on the 28th?
Yes. Yeah.
We'll have it will be a little fresher for some of us.
Yeah.
Alternatively, we could, I'll commit to kind of reviewing that and be prepared to discuss. But I think we've had success in the past with a work group kind of being able to focus and provide a little input early on. Curious, do folks have thoughts on that?
I do. It's Wendy. I had thought that was sent out to us by Terry, and we had a prior opportunity to review it. And I remember looking at it, and I thought it was a good list, so I didn't have a lot of revisions to suggest. So I'm not sure we really need to do that again if people feel they've had adequate input on it. And Terry's probably the person who knows whether a lot of people responded, and he feels like some thought's been given to it.
Yeah, I didn't get much response on that. I think something to think through is there's probably some prioritization warranted, in the sense that it's a pretty darn big list, and the degree to which, I gotta say this, if it's not prioritized, then the research potentially becomes extra large. So that's a question.
Other thoughts? And if you can raise your hand, that would just help me because I can't see everyone's
Yeah.
video. Seth?
Yeah, I was just going to add that, from my perspective, I appreciate that, Terry. I think it's looking at a list of those of the rules is a little bit abstract without some of the rest of the conversation about, how, like you're saying, how do amphibians use certain areas? What do we currently know? What are the narrowing in on the question we actually have? I think will be helpful. And then looking at that list and pulling out of that list the pertinent rules that are, match that question that we have. So for example, if it's a type N question, then some of those rules around type F streams wouldn't apply, and vice versa, right? So I think we need to have the rest of the conversation and then go back and look at that list. I think it was helpful to sort of bring that list together, but I'm not sure that any of us will have a lot of comment about the list. Just, it's a good list, a big list. Maybe if there's something somebody's missing, but that would require us to do like a deep dive on our own of the force practices and then comparing back and forth. And I don't see anybody, unless people have a bunch of time and want to do that, that'd be great. But otherwise, I just can't see getting a lot of comments on it. But it's useful to just have it in the back pocket for the rest of the conversation once that comes. And I also, second part of a comment that I have is I think it's going to be interesting to get into the rest of the conversation about, and as we look at the moving forward and our work plan moving forward, I think a lot of what we're going to focus on over this next year, and appropriately so, is the effectiveness monitoring piece of this. And once we have the draft HCP, I think that'll illuminate a lot of the roles in terms of AMC, IRST, and what the goals are, and all of those things, which will help us sort of focus in on a lot of that effectiveness monitoring. And a lot of that question 3 is effectiveness monitoring. So I think that will inform it as well. So
Wendy?
I just want to say that makes sense to me, because I think that having a working group look at the broad rules now is, again, a little hypothetical. And that I think it's good to have on our initial list be a broad one, because it just includes the scope of the applicable rules. But then we have a specific application, we can consider which ones to prioritize. So I think it'd be a little early to look at the rules as a group again now.
That sounds good. So then we'll just be prepared to discuss question 3 on the January 28th meeting.
Mhm.
Okay.
That's good.
And we have not voted on question 3, right?
What technically was included in the
That's what
question
I,
package I think it was
Right.
last spring, but subsequent action in terms of responding to IRST questions and the list of rules there has not been subsequent action on question 3.
we do have a final question though. Right.
Yeah.
There's clarifications. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Great. Then anything else to sort of prepare for that January meeting related to amphibians? Sean?
Maybe one thing just related to the RFPs, we're going to be discussing the roads RFP in our meeting this Thursday. And there's, we post the materials for the meeting ahead of time. And then we're going to have another meeting on January 22nd. So there'll be another draft of the RFP posted to our web pages before then, if you folks want to consider, looking at those before your meeting, before we have that discussion. I think our plan was we'll give a presentation on the RFP kind of process and structure there, but I don't know if you folks want to dig into it further than that. Those resources will be available.
Gotcha. My apology. My screen is doing a little funky thing here with the presentation. Okay. Let's stop sharing here for a moment. My apology. Oh, I see. Oh, my computer's doing something funky here. Let's.
Do you want me to?
Okay, so
Oh, very good. Okay.
backspace. So that one we just did, and then. Okay, so electing a co-chair. So the situation is the co-chairs have 2-year terms. They alternate in terms of when their elected term starts. And so January 1st, 2026 would be the next start date. And so Seth Barnes is currently in the position and has raised his hand to continue to do it again. And is there any questions or comments for first? I do have a suggested motion if anyone, go ahead, Will and Jason.
So I've been extremely pleased by the team of Seth and Stacy. So I am happy to hear that Seth wants to continue in that role. I would strongly support that. So when you're ready and have a motion, I'd be ready to be the person that makes that.
Gotcha. Jason, I think I saw your hand go up.
Yeah, I was just going to say ditto. Well said. Seth's been fantastic, and I would support that.
Okay, great.
Thanks, Jason.
Julie?
Yeah, I was just going to echo the previous comments that I'm really grateful that Seth is willing to step up again. I think he and Stacy make a great team.
Great. Okay.
Thanks, Seth, for being willing to do another term.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You too, Stacy.
Okay, if you've got a draft motion, Terry, unless folks have other comments, I think we're good to move forward.
Okay. The draft motion I have is the Adaptive Management Program Committee reelects Seth Barnes as co-chair to serve a 2-year term. Starts January 1, 2026.
So moved.
I second Wendy.
Okay.
Any discussion? Not seeing any hands raised. I think we're good to move to a vote.
Okay. We can do a roll call. Seth Barnes.
Can I abstain? No, yes.
David Bugney.
Yes.
Stacy Detweiler.
Yes.
Julie Furman.
Yes.
Wendy Gerlach.
Yes.
Haley Ohms.
Yes.
Jason Robeson.
Yes.
Josh Seeds.
Yes.
Amanda Sullivan Astor.
Yes.
And William Tucker.
Yes.
All right, so that's 10 for, 0 opposed.
Thanks for the vote of confidence, all. We will continue to move forward.
Yeah. So looking at the year in review, yes, here. This is a summary of the year, and can folks still see the
No, it looks like you're
screen?
not.
Okay.
No.
No longer sharing, Terry. Gonna hold that against you. Got to share and share alike.
Okay.
Yep.
Can
Now
folks see
you're-
it now?
Mhm.
Okay. So this is really a summary, and the way I did this was simply by meeting of the AMPC. So back in February, you folks were conversing about amphibians. You finalized the questions on amphibians questions 1 and 2, and you conversed about the question 3 in March. And then on April 7th, you had some initial conversations about the effectiveness monitoring strategy, question and answer with the IRST about the Eastern Oregon scoping proposal, sort of, that was the very first one that you received. What does that look like? How does that work? And then continued your discussions on not just questions 1 and 2 for amphibians, but all the supporting information in the question package. And then on April 18th, you finalized the entire amphibians package. In June, you had a question and answer with IRC co-chairs regarding the scoping proposals that were under your consideration for the research agenda and the recently completed roads scoping proposal. And then you discussed both the framework for the research agenda and the initial draft. So that's that part. On July 7th, you finalized the research agenda, and that got sent to the board for their consideration, along with the budget. August 25th, you folks responded to the IRC's questions, clarifying questions on amphibians, questions 1 and 2. And then what's not on here in terms of AMPC work was the board approved the agenda as proposed at their September meeting. And there was a presentation by the AMPC co-chairs for that. At the joint meeting with IRST in October, you folks discussed, both committees together discussed their respective work plans, the role of research and monitoring in adaptive management, and clarifying what makes for a good researchable question. And then there was conversation about the roles of AMPC, the IRST, and the board in adaptive management and how to enhance the communications there. And then you folks dove into the challenges for each of the 3 topics you've been working on. And then after that, same day as that joint meeting, there was an AMPC only where you finalized some changes to the responses to the IRST's questions on amphibians, questions 1 and 2. And then finally, December 8th, which is today, obviously electing the co-chair, doing a year in review, talking about the work plan, and then getting commenting, netting the AMPC charter. So that's sort of the elevator pitch summary of what you folks have been up to this year. And that'll form the basis of part of the adaptive management program update that goes to the board in March for presentation and conversation with the board. And so Stacy and Seth will be presenting part of the AMPC portion of that, and the IRST folks will be there, and then ODF staff will be there as well to present. Any further thoughts, questions, comments?
I have a few, but want to see if other folks have anything first. I guess just initially to jump in, well, instead of January, sounds like we're doing this update in March, which I think will be helpful for a number of reasons. And Seth and I haven't had a chance to really talk about what that presentation will look like, but I think based on some feedback and the back and forth with the board around the research agenda, I think our challenge and task is really to make sure that this is very accessible. We can talk about the outcomes, and we have really done a lot of work in this last year, and certainly since the committee kind of got up and running, and really trying to put that into context, as well as the value of this work for Oregon and for the HCP. So this is helpful just to kind of run through meeting by meeting, but that's how I will be thinking about it. And I know we haven't really had that prep conversation, but I'm curious if folks have thoughts sort of in that framing or things that would be helpful to make sure that the board is hearing, that the public is hearing around the work that we've done, particularly as funding for this work may be in question, and really just trying to make the best case for what we have accomplished. Wendy?
Yeah, I was thinking back to our meeting on October 27th with the IRST. So one of my takeaways from that was that there are opportunities for us to enhance our communications, which is what's written in this summary. But in terms of talking to the board, I think the board has sounded at times like it's looking for more efficiency, and it wants to know how we're getting a bang for our buck in terms of using our money. To me, one of the ways to get more efficacy is to maybe have earlier input from the scientific perspective on how we achieve a bigger goal, like a goal type question, and have, like, from my personal opinion, maybe we get some early proposals for them on what's the best way to find the answer to that question. And then from the AMPC sort of policy say what's a policy acceptable way to pursue that. So in terms of, say, trying to make a case that we are doing the work we need to do, that we've made progress, and this is how, looking forward, we're going to be efficient and using the money really well. To me, that's an important part.
Yeah, thanks, Wendy. Any other thoughts, comments on that? We'll have a meeting before this presentation since we'll be meeting in January, so we can discuss this again, but okay, not seeing any hands, so I think we can move forward.
Okay. So for the 2026 work plan, there's sort of some new context, both in terms of there will be new information coming out with the biological goals and objectives, and at least a portion, I think the plan is for a portion of the HCP that supports the biological goals and objectives to be presented. And so I'll touch more on that here in the next slide or two. But that's a lot of important key information that will be new for the AMPC. And then there's also some new processes. You know, we've been talking about an effectiveness monitoring strategy, and that's just the development of that is outside the realm within that's outside the body of work that the AMPC has undertaken so far. And we're still working out sort of the framework to develop that and an outline for that strategy. And so both of all that new information and new context provide a challenge to having a lot of precision in determining the workload and the timing of that. Given all that, so here's the draft work plan, and we've got it broken out pretty much by month, and it shows quite a bit of it also, this is designed to help the AMPC see what the IRST is working on. So they have a meeting scheduled on January 22nd. And then at the January 28th meeting, as we just discussed, there's IRST conversations on amphibians and RFPs, and then talking about amphibians questions 3 as the AMPC. February, the IRST, actually, that first line should be continue working on the amphibian scoping proposal. And their letter they sent in, I believe it was last May, said that they need about 7 months is their estimate of how long it'll take to develop the scope of proposals on amphibians once the questions have been finalized. Questions were finalized November 20th, so fast forward, that puts it in June approximately. As we said earlier, hopefully it'll be earlier. And then they are hoping to finalize the RFP solicitation in February for the roads and road stream hydrologic connectivity. Again, there's some with the budget uncertainty that provides some uncertainty of exactly the timeline for the RFP work. So they're in the process of figuring that out. March, they were going to be issuing the RFPs. They may be doing it earlier, depending on, again, this budget question. And then in April is a big meeting. It's a joint meeting with IRST on April 13th. And that's where we're really going to kick off a bunch of information. So there will be a presentation on the biological goals and objectives and the context of part of the HCP. And so a lot of that will be just getting everyone on the IRST and the AMPC on the same page in terms of here's what the information is, here's the framework for the biological goals and objectives. And then there'll be a presentation from the ODF compliance monitoring folks that will provide a sort of enhance the whole picture of both the monitoring for the HCP, as well as help to differentiate compliance monitoring from the effectiveness monitoring. I know we've done some of that, and I've seen some conversations where some members of the IRST didn't have as complete of an understanding. So that'll be really helpful for, again, bringing everyone on the same page. We're going to have a presentation from ODF and W about their ongoing effectiveness monitoring work and explore ways to work together on that. And then kicking off the effectiveness monitoring strategy. Again, this is bringing everyone on the same page of what we're trying to do with this, how we're going to go about it, et cetera. Who's on first and what's on second, basically, in terms of that process. And then what's the structure of that strategy. I'll pause here to see if there's questions or comments so far.
I would just add to, wanted to include both IRST timing as well as our timing, just to help daylight a little bit of the schedule. Obviously there's a legislative session in there. IRST is doing a lot of work, January through March, which is kind of why we landed on April as that timing. And then a bit to your point, Wendy, and I know we talked about this extensively at the joint meeting, is particularly for the effectiveness monitoring, how do we have some of those cross-committee conversations a little bit earlier so we can be utilizing each other's skill sets and talking early on. That also gives a decent buffer. So we feel pretty confident that by that April timing, we'll have a lot more publicly available information around the HCP and BGOs and really be able to kind of start moving forward. So I don't know, Seth, if you want to add anything to that, but just wanted to provide some context for that timeline.
Yep. No, I agree with everything you just said. Nothing to add.
And just to piggyback a little bit more on what you said, Stacy, there's also, as we talked about at the October joint meeting with IRST, by understanding when some of the work products will be coming from the IRST that the AMPC needs to respond to, whether it's clarifying questions, whether it's scoping proposals, et cetera. I'm thinking particularly the amphibian scope proposals that could be moved into the research agenda. And, obviously there's a process by which the AMPC needs to have some kind of conversation around that and then sending it to the board for a decision, and trying to align meetings and conversations to help smooth that a little more efficiently. Okay, so the second half of 2026 is where it's a little less clear on exactly what'll happen when. In May, the IRST is hoping to award the RFPs, and then working on the effectiveness monitoring plan together. Or doing the respective parts. And then the summer, like I said a moment ago, the IRST's scheduled to complete the scoping proposal for amphibians questions 1 and 2. And then the AMPC will have a chance to converse about those scoping proposals and bring those into the research agenda, or recommend bring those into the research agenda and funding to the board, and continuing to work on the effectiveness monitoring strategy. There is in rule, not in rule, I'm sorry, in your charter has by July 1 getting new research questions to the IRST. My educated guess is that everyone will have a heavy workload in terms of that effectiveness monitoring strategy, and that'll be much of the focus in 2026, as well as responding to the amphibians questions and scoping proposals from the IRST. So there may not be additional research questions. And even that date maybe should be revisited of July 1, given that in the charter, there's a place for a place in a process for proposing new research questions, new preliminary research questions. And that is in your charter, you've got that in fall of odd years. And this year, folks decided not to propose any new questions, in part because I think the effectiveness monitoring strategy will help focus that work in terms of the timing and the priorities of which topics need to be addressed. And then, so there's that question. The fall, there'll be a field trip and likely more work on effectiveness monitoring strategy. Amanda, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to ask a question for clarity on what we have in the charter under the AMPC deadlines, because you just were kind of talking about that, and I brought up the charter because one, I wanted to look at the co-chairs and the terms and stuff, just because I was wanting to make sure. But then I started reading everything else. I'm like, oh yeah, I haven't read this in a while. I should probably take a look at this. And so I did want to ask the question because it says that like it looks like every year it says preliminary research questions July 1. That is a deadline, but then there's also the consider proposed preliminary research questions in the fourth quarter of odd years. And so, but there isn't a whole lot of clarity, I feel like, in the charter about what's supposed to happen at which time. So it sounds like this meeting, you guys did the call and all that kind of aligns with the proposing, but then we would actually select them every year in July, or help me understand your interpretation of that. I can't remember. It's been a while.
No, that's a great question. That's a great question. And part of the challenge is that the rules say, let me look up exactly what it says, but something to the effect of, the AMPC will deliver. The APC shall send preliminary research questions to the IRC annually on a date specified in the charter. So that's not the best rule language. And then when you folks drafted the charter a few years back, I think everyone kind of went, well, heck, yeah, July 1st, that looks like a good time frame. And is that the best process? I think that's something for you folks to converse about. And so the next thing on the agenda after this, after the 2026 work plan, is actually going into the charter. I suggested some edits. Folks might have more thoughts, but we'll have time to pull that up and address that. So those are great observations, Amanda. Thank you. Wendy.
Hi, I was thinking about the fact that we already set up earlier, I think in early 2025, the effectiveness monitoring work group. And I can't see if Josh is on. He probably knows the most about that in a way. But we did do some work in terms of looking at alternative plans for, the way that, like, I think there were 3 examples of quite long plans by which effectiveness monitoring is done. And then we came up with a draft request to the IRST for some initial input on how we might approach this project. So to the extent we can use that work that we already worked on as a working group in order to tee up a more effective meeting, I'd just be in favor of that.
That makes
The
sense.
meeting, the
Yeah.
meeting in April or whenever
Yeah,
for next
yeah,
year.
that makes sense. And I will be working with folks on helping to flesh some of what that process looks like in terms of the two committees and what an outline for it looks like, because there's not a whole lot of detail in the HCP, but there's not a whole lot of detail about the strategy itself, the whole biological goals and objectives, and that framework heavily informs the strategy. So we will certainly use that information that you folks have already drafted, and the context is somewhat different than when you were working on it, unfortunately. So it's not a direct one-to-one, but it is useful information. And then, so coming back to the 26 work plan, really the final thing, there's the field trip in the fall, and probably I would think there would be an AMPC meeting as well, but it's hard to, like I said, hard to predict now. And then in December will be the sort of the typical meeting that is analogous to what we're doing today, with preparing the Death Management Program update to the board, discussing the year in review and looking at the next year's work plan. And again, more work on the effectiveness monitoring strategy. And then it's possible that the work on that the results from the Eastern Oregon steep slopes lit review will be completed, and there will be some conversation for the AMPC to have about what to recommend to the board in response to that. So that's where the work plan stands right now. Other questions or comments? Amanda.
Since I'm not in the room talking about the HCP and that whole process, is there any required finish date that the services have in their head for when we have to have the effectiveness monitoring strategy completed? Do we need to have it complete before they issue an IT incidental take permit? Or just trying to think of how that all fits into the work plan for this next year and the year following.
Terry, do you want to take that, or I can?
Yeah, we don't have a date yet from the services, and I'm not even 100% clear about if we're going to propose a date or not on that. But certainly by the April meeting, we'll have clarity on much of that in terms of both what the plan should look like, the process for doing it, and a timeline. Seth, Stacy, any more?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Again, this is still not final submitted language. I believe there is a date, and I think there's language similar to an initial effectiveness monitoring plan by X date that I apologize, I don't recall. So it's sort of a timeline driven by the state and by ODF, not necessarily driven by the services. Again, they haven't seen it yet in its latest form, so whether they would come back and require that, I don't think we know yet. Seth, do you want to add anything?
That's a good answer. I was just going to say the same thing. We tried to build the date within the draft. It's going to push us, but it's not, not like push us too hard. It's going to be something that we know we're going to try to achieve. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was definitely achievable within the timeline that we were thinking of, which includes this draft work plan and all of that. But Stacy is 100% spot on. We don't have the feedback from the feds yet, and likely won't have it for some period of time after we submit that draft. And so my guess is they will by default be okay with that timeline, because I'm not sure they'll be done reviewing our draft before before that date that's in there. So anyway, yeah, that's about the best we can give you, Amanda. And you'll see it, everyone will see it, and we'll be able to dissect it and talk about it together once that's made public and everybody gets a chance to kind of look through it. That's the whole point of sort of that this meeting, where we would look at what's in there and make sure everyone's aware of it and start working towards those ends.
Yep.
But it's a really good question, Amanda, and it really is, it's something we've prioritized from the beginning, and something that I think makes a lot of sense for us to start doing now. I mean, we keep dancing around it, and the reality is a lot of the questions that we all have and would pose are questions that would fit well within that effectiveness monitoring overarching plan. And so once we kind of start down that road, I think a lot of things will fall into those buckets and will be made a little bit more clear.
Any other questions, clarifications? Like Terry said, this is very much a draft, but we wanted to try to give you a sense of both meeting frequency, general timelines, and priority for the next year. So I think we're good to move on unless there are other comments.
Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen here. And I guess a question is, do folks want to, Stacy, do folks want to take a 5-minute break or just keep on going?
I would say let's push unless anyone needs to step away, and then feel free.
Okay. Okay. And so this next part is really working on the amending the charter. I did some draft edits for your consideration. Mostly it's just cleanup type stuff. I don't think I fully tackled this question that Amanda posed. So however, Stacy, and however you folks want to go through this, it is done in track changes, and Emily has it pulled up here.
Yeah,
I
how
guess, oh, sorry, go ahead.
sorry, go ahead. I was just gonna say, let me know, like, do you want me to slowly scroll through it, or like, is there an area that I should scroll to first? Just
Yeah, I was just gonna ask either Terry if you could just quickly, like, the top 3 changes or ones that maybe are more substantive, or if folks have had a chance to review. And is the expectation, Terry, that this would be a substantial decision and we would vote to approve these changes?
Yes, it is
Okay.
it would be a substantial decision. So, yeah, that's a great question that I'm not prepared for, but give me 10 seconds here to kind of.
Or while Terry.
Actually, you know what?
Oh, okay.
I think what Amanda raised is a really good point, in terms of so under substantial decisions, approval of proposed preliminary research questions per section 8 of this charter. That's something I added. Page is that's on page 3. Everything else is more cleanup type stuff. And so I think that whole question of how do you want to do the proposing preliminary questions and then sending, under the deadlines in section 7, EPC deadlines, do you want to keep the July 1 date? And I think it's okay if you keep that to, proactively communicate to the IRST, which might be the case in 2026. We don't have additional questions right now because everyone, sort of the collective, everyone is their plate is full. But that's up to you folks.
Can you take those one at a time, perhaps, and go back up to
Yeah.
3? And just pause there. Oh,
Do you mean page 3 or section 3?
I'm at page 3. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I was a little confused by that.
So yeah, this one, the first part, nominations IRC, that's moot. That's done. So I suggested deleting that and then amended the language to match the proposing process.
It's like Will has his hand up, Stacy.
Yep, sorry, I was trying to read.
It's
Go
okay.
ahead, Will.
So I would suggest we actually leave in the initial nominations of ISDT per section, and put that in sort of inside of a its own little box, or just a note of history, because I think it is important to note that the selection of those 3 came from the law, and so I would just suggest that instead of striking it because they're not applicable to the future, but I think they are part of this document, may want to reflect that and keep that one, just a sentence that in sort of in brackets that says initial nominations. It may even list what the 3 were, the steep slopes, anyway, just connectivity and amphibians, and just note that was done based upon the original. So if someone wants to know why, where, what, just as for history. Thanks.
Yeah, this is actually referring to the people nominated to the IRST. So I think the principle still probably applies that the AMPC, if you want to keep the history in here, the AMPC completed their initial nominations as required by law.
Yeah, that's I do.
Okay.
I would agree with that, Will, thanks. And maybe, oh, go ahead, Seth, sorry.
If you're gonna do that, I would suggest putting that as number 1, because it's not, as it's currently written, it looks like that subheading is all of that list 1 through 8 are kind of below that, which isn't really the case. That's one of those things in the list. So I would add that to the list and just say, this was a substantial decision from the beginning. And then you can, along those lines, you could also say the initial research topics, as Will was referring to, per statute, were also a substantial decision. And then move to the others that you have. I'm fine either way.
Okay, sorry. Can we sum up what we're adding to the
So
list?
if you copy that initial nominations sentence, and then you're going to add that as bullet number 1. And then, Seth, are you suggesting as a number 2, or editing that sentence as far as the research topics?
I would make it a number 2.
Okay.
And just say initial research topics along the lines of number 1, initial nominations. I mean, it's consistent with the first one, right? Just sort of documenting that those were substantial decisions. And then underneath that is sort of more of the moving forward pieces.
Yeah, so I think we'll want to add in, maybe just put a note, Emily, like whatever the appropriate citation is that probably none of us know off the top of our heads. And then I think that was what we had discussed, but maybe keeping Terry's addition, which is now number 3, approval proposed. Yeah. Okay.
And it looks like
So should I
Amanda's
accept
got her
these
hands up.
ones? Oh,
Sorry, Seth, go for it.
I was just letting you know Amanda's got her hand up.
Oh, sorry, Amanda. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. Emily, did you have a clarifying question for this? I wanted to move on to the red, so.
All I was gonna ask is if I should just accept these so it's a little less messy for you all.
I think it's okay for right now.
All right.
Thank you. Amanda?
Okay. I kind of don't know where to start. So I guess just looking at this language, approval of proposed research questions as per section 8. I'm looking at section 8, and I guess section 8, the way that I read it, is all about how we propose questions. It has nothing to do with approval. There's no process for approval. There's no how we approve. So I guess maybe some clarity.
I think that,
Terry?
yeah, I think that what that was trying to say was approving these questions that were proposed in via section 8. So yeah. And then you're right, there's not really there hasn't been a defined process for how to go about that approval, but could just be, 3 questions have been proposed, and so makes the motion to approve 1 and 2, and 3 gets put on the back burner or whatever. Actually, I don't.
I saw Wendy's hand and then Seth's hand.
I thought that, Amanda, to your point, I think it's probably just that the word PER is somewhat wrong. But it could just be as simple as proposed preliminary research questions as described in section 8. And I wanted to mention that I had a comment that I put in the chat because it was easier to put some proposed language in there that relates to the proxies, but we can do that later after we do this paragraph.
That was my suggestion as well, Wendy. So my hand's down.
Amanda?
Yeah, and maybe just for context, I don't have the OAR pulled up, but what would the difference between 3 and 4 be? Because the wording is very similar, so
Yeah,
you might need to clarify that.
Yeah, so the number 3 is really saying we, the AMPC, want to send a complete package on this question. Number 4 is that completed package after you've discussed it. So for example, number 3 might be, what's the impact of hydrologic disconnection rules on sediment delivery to streams? And that's simply propose that. You say, yeah, that's really important. Let's put that in the hopper. And admittedly, as I'm saying this, the whole effectiveness monitoring strategy might make some of that, may or may not make some of that moot, but I don't think we will know that for quite a while. But sorry for my thinking out loud there. So somebody says, I suggest this question on road stream hydrologic connectivity. Everyone says, yeah, that's great. Let's dive into that a little bit more. So that's number 3 is the decision to, yes, let's dive in a little bit more. Number 4 is we've dove in. Here's the contextual information. We've refined the question a little bit further. We've had a conversation with IRST if you want to do that. And so now there's a complete set of information to send on to the IRST. So you've already done number 4 for roads, steep slopes, and amphibians. Number 3, I guess you sort of did do, not necessarily fully following that process because it hadn't been developed yet. Does that help? Maybe there's still some additional information that needs to be added, but
yeah, Terry, I think that helps. I think because we're just referencing the OAR, maybe having more clarity, like clarifying language would be helpful. Like approval of proposed preliminary research questions as described in section 8 of this charter to be developed into research proposals or whatever we call that thing that goes to the IRST. And then and 4 preliminary research questions per, blank as final packages for the IRST or something that's maybe a little bit more descriptive.
Sure. Yep.
That might be helpful because I can see how it's like one is maybe the proposed preliminary research questions, one is the final package.
Yeah.
And we might know what that means, but somebody in the future may not. So anyways.
Absolutely.
That might be helpful.
That sounds.
Yeah, thanks, Amanda, for flagging that because I do find that a little confusing as well. And we do have at the bottom just that sort of catch-all essentially that we agreed to, that if it's up for a motion and a vote, then it is a substantial decision. So I would worry a little bit about adding confusion with that. But just wanted to raise that or remind everyone. Other comments, questions on this section?
Did my edit make sense for that? Did that capture what you all were talking?
I think so. I kind of want to go back and look at the rules just because I think for consistency, using the same language would be the best. And I just don't have that open, so I don't know if anyone else. Because I think package is sort of a term we've just been using, but I'm not sure if it's in the rules.
It's not in the rules, but I think it's okay to have it in terms of it describes what's there.
Andy?
Yeah, in the rewrite of approval of proposed preliminary research questions, I think you should take the word as, because that makes it sound like you're referring to the approval. It can just say proposed preliminary research questions described in section 8. Yeah, that's what I think. Thank you.
Any other questions for this section? Wendy? Oh, you're muted.
In this section, the part about proxies, I suggested we add in something about the rule, which says there has to be a written appointment of the proxy, which is so easy to forget. And I'm not sure we've been doing that. And it would be awful to have a major decision taken where someone says, oh, there was no proper appointment. So that's, if you look in the chat, I stuck in some language that would be consistent with the actual rule. Because the rule says the organization must submit in writing to the AMPC coordinator the name of the interim member and the duration of the interim status. So it could be useful to just put in the charter that that's the procedure that's supposed to be followed. It seems like to a certain extent, if someone were going to show up at the meeting, the oral conversation would probably cover these points, but still it's kind of a good reminder, I think, to know what the statute's requiring.
Yeah, thanks, Emily. Do you see where that final sentence? An AMC member may appoint a proxy.
Sorry, 1 second. See it.
Just above non-substantial decisions.
Yeah, okay.
And then if you just want to copy Wendy's text in there, and then we can take a look at it.
Okay, where
in the
So
meeting
just
chat.
right there. Oh.
Yeah, but where am I copy pasting it? Sorry, I'm just having a hard time going.
Do you see non-substantial decisions that's underlined?
Oh, yes, sorry.
And if you
For
just
some
go
reason-
right above it, just a line above it, and then put that text above it. Yeah.
With a comma, yeah. So that's saying that the requirements the rules for interim members stated in OAR, including this requirement that there's supposed to be a written presentation. Sorry to raise such a small thing, but it does relate to the efficacy of an actual vote.
And folks have been letting me, when they're sending a proxy, they have been letting me know in writing about that. So
that's good to know. I just wasn't, to me, I didn't know that. So I thought it was just like, oh, we're just voting with this person. So.
gotcha.
Any other comments or questions on, oh, Emily, could you, yeah, just hold there for a second, just give folks a chance to look at it. Any questions, concerns with that addition?
That doesn't, and that doesn't specify what kind of in writing, Terry. I mean, does email work, or does, I would assume this could be any form of in writing that could be printed out
Yeah.
and verified
Yeah.
that it came from you.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to get too wrapped up about that. Just want to make sure it's
Right.
clear.
Yeah.
Should I put including or just like,
No, I would just leave it as is.
okay, cool.
Just make, for the record for this meeting, just wanted to make sure that that was understood.
Terry, you also made some changes to section 5, electing co-chairs, which is on page 3. And it kind of looks
Yeah.
like this thing, like sort of deleting maybe the historical sort of situation of this was the first time we were doing it. And I guess
Yeah.
I would lean towards keeping that language since it is sort of that record, not critical, but
Sure.
just, I don't know if folks have thoughts.
So
Oh,
we're
go ahead.
gonna undelete it essentially.
I think that's right, unless Terry, you changed anything substantive.
Well, I added it. Let's see here. Yeah. I think what I did was just make it more concise. What's there, I think also works, but maybe reject the changes in that paragraph, and then people can see kind of what was there.
I think the addition that you had around co-chair terms last from January 1 to December 31st of the subsequent year, that's a good clarification. So maybe just adding that back in. Sorry, Emily, I can put it in the chat for you.
No worries, it's okay. I can just go.
If you just hover over each individual change, and you can right click and accept them one by one instead of
I'm just trying to figure out where like what do we want to delete from here? Like,
I think that's fine. I was just suggesting adding what you just added. So that looks good.
Okay.
Unless if folks have Seth.
I do have one suggestion. The sentence starting with "for the purposes of term duration," I don't know that that adds a lot. I think that was just sort of clarification for, since we started a little bit, a little bit after that point. I don't know that that's really that impactful for long-term capturing of information. I would suggest taking that out just because it confuses the paragraph. No, I would take out that whole sentence. Initial co-chairs were considered to have been elected January 2023. I would take, personally, I think that could be removed and you still have the value of that without making it confusing.
Great. Amanda?
Should we remove the, at least a part of that last sentence? The co-chair's term shall run from the first AMPC meeting of a given calendar year? Or,
Oh, yeah.
because you're saying that the last sentence that we just added says the terms last from
Right. Those are,
January
that's
1. Yeah,
in conflict.
so which one is it?
Yeah, I think the set, yeah, I think that's better like that.
Okay. Anything else for that section? Terry, maybe the last piece I'm seeing that might be good for discussion is just section 7, which is the AMC deadlines. And I
Mhm.
think we were talking about that a little bit, but maybe if you can just kind of walk us through what you changed.
Yeah.
Yep, right there. Thank you.
So this is really kind of what I was saying earlier about what is currently A is the new process that you folks agreed to and added in section 8 about proposing research questions. So that process starts in basically the fourth quarter of odd years, starting in, oops. Sorry, Emily, somehow you're stop sharing. Did
we lose Emily?
Yeah, I'm wondering.
Yeah, I don't see her.
Oh, technical difficulties. So basically, okay.
Are you able to share your screen, Terry? Or
Yeah,
I might be able to.
Give me 3 seconds here. Where is it? Okay. Okay. Can folks see that now?
Yep.
Okay. So this is the deadline. This is the deadline section. A was added, and that really addresses the whole process we talked about for proposing preliminary research questions. That process kicks off in odd years of 2025, following section 8, and then B is really that whole set of whatever was approved in A gets moved into B, and that happens by July 1, for that whole research question package. And then I'm looking at the notes here. So that those are really the bigger changes to these deadlines. The rest are more just clarifying language. I haven't seen. Any questions about A and B? Thoughts about A and B?
Amanda?
I like the language here in B, and I'm wondering if we should align that with what we put in the substantial decisions where we said like the final package. Maybe in that one we say, preliminary research questions and associated contextual information or something. I don't know if we want to align those.
Oh, gotcha. I think
Or
what
if
you're
we want
saying
to
is
call this
up,
one like final package.
yeah, I
Mhm.
think, what you're saying is above, perhaps have this under substantial decisions, use this language rather than the package word, since that's less specific. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, I mean, or use both in both places or one or the other. I just think for consistency, we should use
Yeah,
the
no,
same language.
yeah, that makes sense.
But I
Other
think
folks'
that
thoughts?
this creates a lot more clarity when you take this in context with what we edited in the substantial decision piece, plus the
Gotcha.
process in 8.
And I just wanted to say I lost you guys for a little bit. I'm sorry. Like my computer did the hokey pokey and turned itself around. Anyway. So apologies. Are you saying like in this deadline area, where would we add package, preliminary, like proposed preliminary research questions, final package of proposed, like where are we using send, preliminary research questions final package? Is that what we're adding this, in there? Is that what the thought was?
I think we were trying to decide if we should include package in both of them, in neither of them, or the associated contextual information language in both of them. Just trying to figure out which we liked better or was more clear. So I don't know that we've made a decision.
For the record, I vote for contextual information rather than package, just because it's more informative.
Sure.
And I think that is sort of language, Terry, that you've used in the letters and things like that. So maybe, delete package there, Emily. And then copy and associated contextual information. And then we're going to copy that up to whatever that section was, substantial decisions. Number 3? No, number 4.
Yeah.
And I think, perfect.
Yeah. Yep.
Great. Any final questions on that? Otherwise, I'm going to move us along to kind of final chance, last call for any of these changes. Anything else that jumped out to you, Amanda? Oh, you're muted, I
Sorry. You'd think that we'd all know by now. But can you just scroll down to see? I want to see what that last one got changed to. I'm assuming, Terry, that was what you brought up to the top. Okay. So it was just copy and pasted from the bottom to the top. That's where we were talking about the July 1st date versus the fourth quarter. So I think that this is helpful, but to help me understand. So, and we haven't gone through this process, so that's probably why it's confusing. Every odd year, we would all prepare our preliminary questions, and then in July, that's when we decide in the fourth quarter, I guess, we make some decisions, or maybe that goes to the next meeting. And then we work on those packages, and then on an annual basis in July, there's a tranche of them that are sent on an annual basis to IRST.
Yeah. So again, this is just an annoyance of the way the rules are written that say the intent of the rules was to keep this thing moving rather than, well, someday we'll get to it. Well, let's have a specific time. And so I'm going eventually recommend changing that rule language to be, by a certain date annually or something, or biannually. But so it's just, it's an unfortunate product of this mediocre rule language that says annually on a date specified. Well, okay, so it doesn't say you can't send them another time. So I think you should, what makes just intuitive sense from an operations perspective is when you complete a package, move it on to the IRST. No point in sitting on it for 5 months or 8 months or whatever that might be, because of this. And then we can still send them on that date, but we more just don't want to have things delayed. Does that help?
I mean, I think it does, but you seem to indicate that we would need to change this language to make that happen, or we would need a rule change.
Well, there really needs to be a rule change, and I would keep a particular date in here since it's required by the current rule. And you may even want to reference that rule. Is it referenced in here?
I think it's that spot. Oh no, maybe not. For where it says that we have to have a specified date. I don't think that's
it's 0200 3 sub C. So it is number 5.
So sorry, I just want to make sure I'm tracking, and then I'll get to you, Wendy. I just want to make sure this is wrapped. Amanda, does this work then, or do we need to change anything? I guess I'm not sure if there was a suggestion there.
I'm just trying to understand the process that we have not gone through yet. So,
yeah,
I think I get it, and we all understand the intent behind the rule language, but there may be additional work around clarification of the rule and the process that's actually going to work, and then further aligning that. But for now, we will sort of squint and continue to follow our charter direction, perhaps.
Wendy?
Are you just, oh yeah, okay. I was just like thinking maybe we, in the long-term effectiveness of the AMPC section, which is the different section, are you done with the conversation that we were just having with Amanda? It's in that section, I'd like to capture a bit what's in the note from Terry. That is to say, I suggested it says that the board encourages nominees that are diverse, because to indicate that we're acting under that direction. I think you could just substitute the board for the AMPC and accomplish what I was looking for.
In this second clause, latter clause of the sentence. Yeah.
Yeah, that is what I had in mind. Thank you.
Any other comments on this section? Okay. Last call for anything we haven't talked about, and then I think if we can, if folks feel good about this, would be looking for a motion to approve these changes.
I guess just
Oh,
number 10, yeah, number 10 there, review and updating the charter. I suggested deleting the part about reporting that to the board. In part because there's nothing requiring that in statute or rule, and part that's probably a little bit more in the weeds than we're used to having the board. You know, that's kind of my initial thought, but
I agree with that. For what it's worth.
Yeah.
Looks like Wendy does too.
all right. Do we need to do a 0 to 5, or are we folks feeling generally pretty good that we can move this forward? Seeing some head nodding. Terry, do we have a draft motion for this?
I do. Give me 10 seconds here.
I can share it if you'd like, Terry.
Sure. Go ahead. It's the second motion there.
To make that a little bigger, Emily. Thanks. Great. Looking for a motion.
I'll make that motion. It's Jason.
Thanks, Jason.
I
Do you
second.
want to
the
just,
motion.
sorry, do you want to just read it out real quick, just for the record, so we've got it?
It's up. Sure.
Oh,
yeah.
it's good. Okay. We don't need to, that's fine. So Jason moved, Wendy seconded. Any discussion? All right, I think we can move to a vote.
Okay. Seth Barnes,
Yes.
David Bugney,
Yes.
Adam Coble. Oh, right. I'm sorry. Adam doesn't vote. Stacy Detweiler,
Yes.
Julie Furman,
Yes.
Wendy Gerlach,
Yes.
Haley Ohms,
Yes.
Jason Robison,
Yes.
Josh Seeds,
Yes.
Amanda Sullivan Astor,
Yeah.
and William Tucker.
Yes.
Okay, so motion passes 10-4, 0 opposed. You want to stop sharing your screen here, Emily? So
Great.
I think that concludes it for today, unless there's any other wrap-up questions or comments.
I don't think so. I think we're all set.
Okay, great.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone, and
Yep.
have a happy holidays.
Safe holidays,
All right.
everyone. Take care.
Thanks.
Great job, everybody.